Hi, so it's Rose here, and I'm at the Royal Academy to see the Dennis Hopper exhibition, and I must say that I'm very excited about this. It's called The Lost Album. This exhibition is in the Burlington Gardens part of the Royal Academy, and to get there, what you do is you go through the Burlington Arcade, and it's just round the back. So when you come in, it's grand, beautiful. You can probably hear the echoes a bit. And the first thing that you see is you go up these beautiful old stone stairs, and there's the announcement of the exhibition, Dennis Hopper, The Lost Album, and the picture is Water Chapel from the Water Chapel archive. And it's brilliant. It's very hippie. It's huge. It's about 5 feet by about 6 feet high. And I wonder if that's going to be setting the tone. I hope so, because it's fantastic. The exhibition is in about 4 large rooms, and the recommendation is that you take sort of like 20 to 30 minutes. So I'm in the first sort of like ante-room, and it's giving an introduction, and it's saying that Dennis Hopper is considered by many to be the definitive Hollywood rebel, as he's a cult figure. And obviously he was in films like Rebel Without a Cause, Apocalypse Now, Blue Velvet. They're saying that this exhibition brings together more than 400 vintage prints that were found in boxes after Hopper's death in 2010. I can't wait to see these. He's got select portraits of Jane Fonda, Paul Newman, Andy Warhol. Excited? That's an understatement. I'm so excited. And this exhibition comes at a time when we're looking at the difference between celluloid and digital. Moving into the next room, there's a statement. He says, "I never made a cent from these photos. They cost me money, but kept me alive." Well, there's more, but crikey. He says, "I married Brooke at 25 and got a good camera and could afford to take pictures and print them. They were the only creative outlet I had for these years until Easy Rider. I never carried a camera again." My goodness me, that makes you think, I wonder what there's going to be in them. It makes me think as well that all the excitement that I'm feeling is probably justified. So I'm in the first room, and it's massive. It's about half the size of an aircraft hangar, and 3 walls are full of the pictures, so let's dive in. All these photos are fantastic. They're all moody, black and white, detailed, people in action, people doing everyday things in a beautiful moment in action. But even amongst all this beauty, there's one that's really caught my eye. It's a picture of Peter Vulkos, and he's sort of like crouching in front of a whole load of cars on a scrap heap. And there's something about it that's really stunning. The portrait of Peter, it only takes up about a third of the image, and the cars are all stacked up behind him. There's a contrast as well, because he's wearing a stripy shirt and then he's leaning against a kind of wire fence. It's just really lovely to look at. There's a great picture of Ed Rusher standing in front of somewhere that's got radio service written on it, and the way he's looking sort of at the camera but not quite at the camera, something quite special captured in his look, as if he's kind of scared to look in case he shows what's inside him, but at the same time he's going to look anyway. It's really stunning. There's an image of Irving Blum at Andy Warhol's studio, again in 1964, and it's also really stunning. Irving himself is sort of like caught in a slight downlight, and so his eyes are quite darkened, and behind him there's an Andy Warhol massive portrait, so you've got his face that contrasts with the portrait faces that Andy Warhol has done in the image behind. It's arresting. I love it. Very close to that picture there's one of Irving Blum and Peggy Moffat, and you might have seen this because it's been used in all the press releases, and it's basically a picture of Irving sort of like kissing Peggy Moffat's neck in the back of, it's probably a limousine or something, but it could be a taxi, and the lights coming through their heads between the top of them, and she's also holding her sunglasses. It's one of the most classic types of images that I've ever seen, and when it came in with the press release, it sort of like stood out. It's really a very intimate moment, but it's also grittily portrayed, and so it's beautiful, but it's ugly beautiful and special for all that. Well, there's a picture of Roy Lichtenstein taken in 1964. I wasn't expecting that. And he's in front of one of his paintings, and he's got a really open, happy face. It's a really great capture. He's wearing Converses, by the way. All of these photos are fantastic. Picture after picture of interesting people captured at interesting times. There's a life whirling around them. Every single picture is brilliant. A rare picture of Andy Warhol, Henry Geldzahler, David Hockney and Jeff Goodman together in 1963. How incredible to actually see that photo in real life. Oh, I have to tell you about these pictures. It's two pictures next to each other. Martin Luther King Jr. Making his speech in 1965. He's got his mouth open and he's got a sea of microphones in front of him. Obviously, it's just gobsmackingly iconic, and it's just almost unreal looking at it and recalling that historic moment. And beneath it, there's a picture, Ralph Abernathy. There's a sensational picture of Iker and Tina Turner from 1965. And of course, we all have the benefit of hindsight, but in it, he had definitely captured a kind of Iker's like looking at the camera, and he's ferocious. I think he looks ferocious, and Tina's sort of behind him and slightly to the left, and she's looking really beautiful and gentle. And Iker has this power, it's passion, but it borders into ferocity. That's a really brilliant capture. It's kind of momentous, I think, that image. It's wonderful. Jefferson Airplane, Phil Spector, Love and Spoonful, The Byrds, Brian Jones, James Brown, crikey, guitars, portraits. Everyone invested in the camera. That's what they've all got between them. All his subjects committed to the photo. I can't tell you how much I'm loving this exhibition, just in case it's not coming across. Another fantastic shot of Paul Newman. He looks like he's with us. More from Andy Warhol, behind the scenes. There's an interesting image called Clothesline in 1961 to 7, and it's basically 3 items hanging on a clothesline and a pair of gloves. And I find that interesting because there's movement in it, because the middle thing's moving up, and it just goes to show how he saw incredible interest and inspiration in everyday things, and maybe even things that other people don't want to look at, and he captured them and turned them into something worthy and lovely. There's a whole section about loads of hippies jamming and with their flags and having a really brilliant party, and Love In. There's even one called Love In. Flower children under the trees in the dappled sunlight, lots of flowers. And then there's a whole load of Hell's Angels. They don't look very hellish to me. They all look really beautiful in these photos. Even the photos of a biker being stripped are lovely. We've moved into Mexico for another set of evocative and captivating images. People doing all kinds of things in all parts of life, with enough landscape around to show us what it was really like. One of the Mexico group of photos has an image called Mexico Graveyard, and it's a graveyard, and at the forefront of the image there's a urn, in obviously a gravestone, and at the urn there's a whole load of cacti growing. It's really, really good. There's some bullfight photos as well. Obviously I find them really distressing. So I'm not going to talk about them because it upsets me. You'll have to look at them yourself. Come and see it, yeah. Going from one room into another, and he said, the movie to me was about freedom and the responsibility that you have of being free. You can see that in his photos. Going back to what I was saying earlier about how he sees beauty where others perhaps see ugliness, there's a still life called Decaying Balustrade, which there's like this balustrade, a bit of it is caught in the sunlight and it's decaying, but it's really lovely. And it's a really good example, I think, of how he saw things all around him. And I guess that's related to his sense of freedom, the freedom that you have in beauty and the ability to see beauty. There's a graffiti heart, for example. He liked movement. There's a really great image of cloth on scaffolding billowing in the wind. I'm just going to stand by this fan a moment as I am visiting this exhibition on the hottest day in 2014. I believe it's in the 30s or something like that in London. Okay, moving on, looking at a series of images of a performance called Plastic Face, people in paper bags. It's kind of wacky. And then an absolutely brilliant picture of Helena Kallianiutis in a mirror. It's sad. People doing things, sitting with a bouquet, sitting with their dogs, sewing, crossing the road with their dogs, walking past him, preaching. The Sunset Boulevard riots in 1967, light through a burlap curtain, and the Hopper House, the porch, and then the kitchen at 1712. They're lovely. There are even some pictures of the TV screen with the missile launch in 1965. And then the last word goes to him. He says, I'm an abstract expressionist and an action painter by nature, and a Duchampian finger pointer by choice. As Duchamp said, the artist of the future will merely point his finger and say it's art, and it will be art. This has been an absolutely brilliant exhibition, and I really recommend you see it. You won't believe what you see, and you'll just have a really fantastic time looking at all the wonderful images from a really gifted perspective. So I hope you enjoy it. Bye.